Well, hello
Can
and
you hear
welcome, everyone. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Oh no, this
no
does not.
audio?
This does not bode well for the manservant. I hear you, Cody, and I see you.
I got no audio. I can't hear you.
How good are you at reading lips?
No audio.
Awesome. So, while Cody works on his audio issue. Cody works on his audio issue. Hi, I'm Bear from the internet. I'm the founder and chief executive officer of refugemedical.com. CEO is a ridiculous term because basically what that means is I founded the company and I'm still here.
I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. How about now? So we're going to talk about the pillars of preparedness today.
Got no audio.
I know. IR talk to people, Cody. Let me text the manservant. So meanwhile, hi, everybody. Topher says, I can hear everything. Yeah. We can hear Cody talking. You can hear me talking. But he can't hear me talking in his headphones, which is the best. The internet is the best place.
I got you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do. We have you now.
Loud and clear. Don't know what that was about.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, we so Refuge was kind of going down the list of we have affiliates, right? That's technically what it's called in the marketing space. And there's like, well, who do we want to talk to? I was like, duh, Wranglerstar. So congratulations. Thank you for being the first to do this with us.
Well, it's my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So what have you been up to lately?
I just rolled in. We were in Montana, drove all night to get back home today. Met up with some good guys from all over the country and did some long range shooting and some dirt bike riding and just hanging out.
What calibers were you shooting long range?
338, 50 BMG, 6.5, 308 primarily.
That's awesome. Do you have a caliber preference in the long range category?
Well, I'm not the expert on it. I've taken a few classes. I built my rifle is a 16 or 6.5. I'm pretty solid to 1,000. I can maybe push out to 1,300 with a good spotter, but that's kind of what I'm committed to.
Yeah, I feel that. I run predominantly 308 for long guns, and I like the external ballistics of the 6.5. I really like some of the bigger stuff, the heavier stuff, but I don't like paying to feed them. And when 6.5 came out, I was, and still am, so heavily invested in 308. I was like, the last thing I need is another caliber to start stacking. So when we talk about like prioritizing spend from a preparedness or defense standpoint, I'm like, at this point, I've got half a dozen brothers that have 6.5, and they're like, bro, you totally have to get one. I'm like, I'm good to 1,100 with 175 grain Sierra Match Kings with this setup right here, and out past 1,100, you guys can have it. I'm good. So.
Yeah, no, I get that. When I built my I did had a custom rifle built, and that was at the height of the 6.5. Whenever we was really into that, so I kind of bought into that. To do it over again, I would do a 308, but I'm so invested in ammo now. I think I've got 500 boxes of Hornady OTM, the match grade stuff, and I'm like, oh, I won't shoot that my whole life, and I'm not going to dump it and do something different.
So I'm in the same bucket, same situation, except on the 308 side. I'm like, I've got all these little incredibly valuable brown boxes that say Winchester M118 long range on them.
Right.
That I'm like, it's $3 a squeeze to replace that stuff now. And I'm like, I just can't. I could, but then, I'm like, I'm probably taking money out of one of my kids' inheritances if I do that. So I'm quite happy with 308, although I like 6.5. There's a bunch of other ones out there, 338 Lapua Magnum. I've got a brother that shoots that, and he's like, dude, you got to get a 338. I do not, man. The longest shot on my property where I live in eastern Oklahoma is 225 yards. That's the longest shot that I have. Most of what we shoot is inside of 50 yards. And in this county where I live, most of the deer are killed between 5 and 25 yards out. So, because, we live in a jungle. So I don't personally need a 338. Out where you are, you might, but not me.
Yeah, that's the case here too. Our last place I had steel every 100.
Oh no. Oh no. Look how, oh, he's back. Your last place, you had steel out you were saying. You froze.
Yeah, up. I had steel out to 700.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember Dudley when we were out at Helene?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of hard to forget. He has a 1 mile range in his front yard, which is awesome. And luckily, he's my brother, so I get to go hang out there and shoot when I want to. But for most of this area, there's no need for anything that can hit farther than really about 300, maybe 400. So, so we're supposed to be discussing the pillars of preparedness today. How long have you been into preparedness, as they would call it?
I would say probably right after we got married. So 22 years or so when we really made the commitment to get out of we were living in the city when Jessica and I met. We were in the city. And as soon as she got pregnant on her honeymoon, I just, my eyes changed when I thought about having kids. And I thought, I don't want to raise them here in the city. What didn't bother me in the past, drug deals and prostitution and filth, it was not that big a deal when I was single, but just the thought of my little kids running around there was just not something I wanted to do. So that kind of what kicked it off.
Very similar story. I started, I guess, prepping after Hurricane Katrina because I did some Katrina cleanup for FEMA. And that's when I was like, oh, this is terrible. The government is not coming to help anybody. But at the time, I was a single man in a pickup truck with a big green duffel bag with everything that I needed to sustain me indefinitely in a duffel bag. And then just about 15 years ago, I met my wife, and my two oldest kids are from my wife's first marriage, although they're very much so my children. And the calculus changed when I was like, I now have a wife and kids. Like, I can walk into yon woods and stay there indefinitely. They can't. So I might have to start putting a little bit more on the shelf than what I had previously expected. And so, but something does change when you have children. It's like, oh, I'm actually supposed to take care of these things. Okay, how do I do that? And for all the young men that are listening, unsolicited life advice. I was a big, tough, strong guy I'm making tons of money, working on the road in a really cool industry with giant trucks and cranes and doing all the cool stuff. And I, getting into bar fights, and I thought I had it all figured out. And then I got these two tiny little kids, and there was like dormant DNA that just fired up when I first saw them. And I became a fully actualized male. I'm like, oh, I am a father and a husband now. Like you can try and hurt me all you want. You look at those kids wrong, I will end you. Like a whole nother part of me blossomed and bloomed. And so if you're a young man out there listening right now, the world seems crazy and you're like, I don't know if I should bring kids into this world. Yeah, you should. You totally should, because number one, it'll make you who you're supposed to be, who you're designed to be. And number two, if people stopped having babies during turbulent times, none of us would be here, because this isn't the first time that it seems scary out there. Your thoughts on that story?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I tell the guys on our morning live stream, but you don't really fully develop as a man until you have your own kids and you watch your father die. That's when it all comes full circle, and the weight of responsibility. I guess you have to kind of face that. I think you asking that question about preparedness, I think it started earlier than that because my grandfather primarily raised me, and he was an Okie that lived through the Depression. So that made such a strong impact on them. So we grew up, we hunted all of our vacations were taken to go hunting, and it was for harvesting meat. We canned everything. I mean, we would go out and pick blueberries, and he would find pears and at abandoned orchards and walnuts, and we would dry out walnuts and put up food and canned everything. So I think that experience for him and his family and going without being so poor really put a strong mark on him. And me being raised by him, I just idolized him. He was the best man I ever knew. I wanted to be like him. So I've always kind of had that mindset.
So my wife's grandmother lives on property with us, which is awesome because we have, if my mother-in-law is visiting, we have 4 generations on property, which is super cool. So great grandma, wife, babies, right? All on the same property. And my wife's grandmother is 88 years old, and she's originally from the Oxford, Mississippi area. And her parents lived through the Great Depression, and grandma was very young during the Great Depression. And to this day, she rinses tinfoil, she sees the value in everything. She's 88. She has the best garden in this county, bar none, without question, the best garden. And if you look at her garden, it's like 4 or 5 different types of wire fencing, all different kinds of things for fence posts. One of the fence posts is a tree, and it's all just kind of cobbled together. She's out there with a hoeing by hand. The hose is older than she is. It's on its 4th or 5th handle. And she's just out there getting it done without anything fancy. And she's the epitome of waste not, want not. And it's super awesome. But I grew up in upstate New York. I know East Coast man, but hey, I cut timber growing up. So, these are calluses, sir. I will let you know. But where we grew up, everybody thinks of New York and they think the whole state is concrete and high rises. And like we had chickens and cows and we had a 2-acre garden, and it was nothing to put 6 months of food back for the winter because the winter could be 5 or 6 months long. From growing season to growing season, we had about a 5-month growing season, and that was just normal. We'd slaughter a beef every year, and we'd had a 2-acre garden, and we'd go hunting and whitetail and turkey and small game and fishing and all, and that was just normal. That was not that long ago. I mean, we're talking 30 years ago, and now you're the weirdo if you have, the national average is 2.4 days worth of food in an American household, and I just, how do we get here, Cody? What happened?
Yeah, it was not that long ago. Just thinking back, both my granddads rode a horse to 1st grade. I mean, that's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my grandpa checked oil wells in Kansas and Oklahoma on horseback. That was his job. Yeah. That's what he did. Yeah. My great-great-grandfather was the last U.S. Marshal of the Oklahoma Territory before it was a state. So, do you like horses?
Oh, God, no. No, I do not like horses. My granddad used to call them hay burners. I grew up around them because we used to use them quite a bit for hunting, and all my family had them. We had horses and mules, and I remember packing in on an elk hunting trip in the Minam unit, and I had it's a goat trail with exposed cliffs, and one wrong move and you'll fall 3,000 feet off the edge. And I had this vicious horse that had it out for me, and the whole time it would reach around and try to bite me, and I would knock it in the head, and then it would intentionally, in my opinion, stumble, the worst, and try to shake its saddle off. It was the only horses I ride have engines.
So I see the utility in horses. Growing up, we had horses, and they're fun to ride if you like riding them, but feeding them and mucking those stalls, that was my job. And I'm like, I hate these things, man. Every one of them has a personality, and they can be very finicky, right? And so depending on what mood they're in, I don't know. We've met I'm a little top heavy, right? Like, so there's I like as much friction in between me and the ground as I can get. And there's something about being thrown off of a horse that's just not in a good mood today that doesn't sit well with me. Like, I just want to punch it.
Oh,
It's like, after all I've done for you, right? I've fed you, I put this roof over your head, and then keeping them in shoes and grooming them and the whole nine. I literally have to get in here and shovel your poop out. And then today you decide to have an attitude. It's like that, when John Wayne punches the horse, that's exactly how I feel about it. So I see the utility. I understand it. It's just not my cup of tea.
oh my goodness. Yeah. I go on and on. My neighbor over here to the west is a rodeo guide. He's got his horses, and the one over here to the east has got a bunch of horses. And, I give him a hard time all winter long. Like, I put my motorcycles and my gas powered things away, and they're not costing me anything. And those hay burners are, you got to keep them warm, and their water's frozen, and they threw a shoe, et cetera, et cetera. I think with those type of things, if you haven't grown up around it and really have a passion for it, then just be careful what you ask for when it comes to getting involved with livestock like that.
Oh, I agree with that completely. So I see, I'm an advocate of the homestead lifestyle. I live it. And again, I kind of grew up that way. So I had, my learning curve was baked in. There's a lot of people that, as they investigate preparedness, I think come to the reasonable conclusion that at some point I need to, at least in part, be my own grocery store. Like, how do I produce calories and all of that? And what I see oftentimes is they jump in with both feet too quickly, and they go from, I lived in a suburb of Chicago to I've got chickens and sheep and horses and cattle and all, and like that fast. And the learning curve with livestock can be steep, and then people get burnt out. And then next thing you know, a year later, they're selling their whole flock off, or places getting foreclosed on because they just don't want to do it anymore. So you've been into preparedness 22 years. I've been doing this for about 20 years, 15 with a family. Where would you, let's say somebody who's watching this, which would boggle my mind between your audience and my audience, but let's just say they're brand new. They don't know anything about the concept of preparedness, and they're seeing, 800 generals and admirals are over there in Quantico, and Trump's martial law and all this crap is happening, right? First steps, what would you point them in the direction of?
Community. I thought that I was very prideful when I started with this. God's Holy Spirit really put it upon my wife and I. Fortunately, we were of the same mind that I didn't have to convince her. We kind of came to this idea together. But I had this notion that I will do this. I will build a road. I will put the well in. And I had to be really humbled. I went out there and just beat my head against the wall because I was pushing it harder. I was pushing in front of God's timing for me. And my notion that I'm going to do this all by myself was a huge error. And it set me back a lot. Community is a thing. You talk about livestock, you're only one man. And depending on your skill set, you can only do so much. And you go to a homesteading convention and you get all excited. Okay, I'm going to do goats and I'm going to do sheep and I'm going to do canning and I'm going to build an ice house. The reality is you can't do that. You can only do so much. And when it comes to livestock, I don't want to do livestock. I don't know anything about it. I'm not into animal husbandry, but I can move into a place with guys that do that, and that's their passion. And maybe I can offer something else. So we really looked long and hard about geographical location, like-minded people, resources, water, shelter, fuel sources. What can I, maybe I'm not doing it all right now, but at least I'm in a place where I have access to it. So rather than trying to do everything myself, like we originally set up for, I'm going to have chickens and I'm going to have a cow and I'm going to do my own cheese. I think that that's unrealistic for most people. And so I think the best thing to do is to get yourself in an environment where you can offer something to the community. What my expertise is going to be, I'm good at carpentry. I'm good at fabricating. I've got my own heavy equipment. I come from that construction background. I could pull security. So I'll let my neighbor do the cows because that's what he's done for 5 generations. And maybe I set up a sawmill, how I can contribute or do medical, that side of things. So be realistic about your expectations, and also don't overrun your wife or your significant other. because that's the quickest road to divorce. Is you get excited and you want to go out there and you want to be a man on the island, and you don't take into consideration your family and what their needs are. I'm not a social person. My wife is. She likes to get together with ladies and have book clubs. She likes to be able to go out to and have a date at a restaurant. So we had to make compromises and be really realistic when we looked at it. I guess so. Just be realistic of what your expectations are. Consider your whole family, what their needs are, and start slow and just do what you can. And remember, you're only one person.
It's a good word. So when I met my wife early on, she's like, "What are you doing in the hallway again?" I'm like, "Well, I got this bucket and I got this rice, and I'm going to put this rice in this bucket." She's like, "This is crazy. Why are you doing this?" I'm like, "Well, because we might need it at some point. And I've been doing this since before I met you. This is part of the process." And so she didn't give me, she did not actively resist me in it, but she also wasn't bought in. And because it was baked in when she got me, right? And then I remember her one day, I'm putting beans in a bucket. She goes, "Hey, when the world ends, I don't want to eat beans." I said, "Okay, awesome. You're in charge of that. Figure it out." She goes, "What?" I said, "I empower you. You got a promotion. You're in charge of food storage now. You figure out whatever it is you want to eat." And she did. But that being said, what I told her was, see, I always worked. I'm a classically diagnosed workaholic. I've had 3 different head doctors go, "Hey, you're a workaholic, right?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm aware. I come by it naturally. My dad was, my grandpas were. We just, you gotta work really hard in order to make something happen." So I would work, lots of overtime, lots of additional jobs, odd jobs, whatever it was, from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. or so on average, 5, 6, 7 days a week. And the point of all that is, my wife has always been empowered with a budget. I was like, "Tell me what you need to run the house." She'd give me a number. I said, "Okay, that's coming to you. You handle all this other stuff. Now I'm going to earn above and beyond that. And then a portion of that I'm going to use for this preparedness thing. So I'm never taking money out of your budget in order for me to prepare for us." And that was super cool because we weren't at odds over finances on that. It was paid for. I handled it. And then she would be like, "Oh, I think we should get this." "Okay, cool. How much is that?" "Oh, well, it's going to cost $80 to get a case of this stuff." "Cool. Do we have $80? "Yeah, we have $80. Let's get it." So much so she now 5 years ago bought a freeze dryer and just started freeze drying food. And you get a Mountain House thing, it's $8, $10, $12 for one of those. I don't know how many hundreds of freeze dried meals I have because my wife just freeze dries stuff in water bath cans and pressure cans and all that. So I gave her a little bit of purview, and she took it and ran with it, and it didn't cost her anything except a little bit of her time, a little bit of her effort. And so the house continued to operate where we weren't redirecting funds from our everyday life towards preparedness. And that's where I think a lot of people get jammed up as well. It causes friction in a marriage, even if your wife or significant other is ideologically aligned. Yes, we should be preparing for whatever. Well, where are we going to get the funds? I don't go find something to do that pays money. And having, I mentioned I grew up in upstate New York. We didn't have a whole lot of money on many an occasion. Started my first company with a $500 pickup truck and a $200 chainsaw. That's not a whole lot in assets at 17 years old. I went to school Monday morning for a half a day and did a week's worth of work from 7 a.m. till noon. Then I went and cut timber for Monday afternoon through Saturday, worked on my equipment on Sunday, repeat the following Monday. But we never starved to death. And in 5 years, that little company with $700 in assets, I sold it for $1.4 million. Okay. So my point is, the work is there if you're willing to apply yourself. If you do the work, it produces the revenue, and then you can direct that revenue wherever you see fit. And a lot of people, I hear from a lot of people, like, "I just don't have money to get prepared." Well, it's the same problem set for anything else. It's like, if you needed an emergency operation and it's $20,000, you'd find $20,000. At least I would make it happen. What are your thoughts on that as far as dedicating finances to preparedness?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. Yeah, also, you have to be careful. It's really easy to get on YouTube and start trying to compare yourself with other guys
Mhm.
and thinking, well, you see someone else and you're like, well, that's the standard. Then if I don't have 5 years of food in a freeze dryer and my own hand pump well, then I'm failing. And that's not the case at all. The component that I really missed that really set me back was not cooperating with God and listening to his instruction. Now
Mm.
he understands that you can only do so much. And most guys are going to be having to maintain a job while they're trying to build up a homestead. And you talk about workaholic, just as well as I do, those are 16-hour days, and it goes on and on and on. And you can really, a lot of people will burn out on that. You have to keep it into perspective. You got to take care of your family first. You got to pay your mortgage. You got to pay your car note. You got to cover your bills, and anything that's left over from that, that's what you apply. There's no point of putting your wife and your family and your financial standing at risk because you're trying to run ahead of it and trying to get ahead of everything and trying to outrun what you can actually do. And I hear that all the time too. Oh man, I don't even know where to start. I feel like I'm so far behind. No, you're not far behind. God calls people all the time. And you can really make your preparations your idol too. You can get so prepared and you've got 5,000 gallons of diesel and you got 5 years. I mean, I fell into that type of place where I'm sitting around here and I felt like the guy in the Bible, that, I know what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build more. I've got so much. And the message that I really got was you need to be prepared and you need to have things squared away and you need to deal with situations when they come to take care of your family, whether that be a natural disaster or dealing with power outage or water or food or medical. But you also don't want to be so burdened down with gear and equipment that you can't move and you can't react if God tells you to pick up and move somewhere.
Mhm.
So I've been really trying to walk that balance of I've literally gotten rid of 75, 80% of the stuff that I thought that I needed and keep myself in a position where I can be fast attack and I can be mobile. Yes, I have the things that I need. If I don't have them, I can get them or I can put them into action, but it's not going to be my idol. It's not going to be, I'm not like so entrenched here that if an opportunity comes up for me to go and to do something or to get out of here, that I'm just left behind because I'm just so anchored to the land.
That's a great word. Yeah, preparedness and preps becoming an idol is 100% accurate. So I'm a person of deep faith. I believe you are a person of deep faith. We've shared a little bit of Bible study together once upon an occasion. My personal standpoint is none of your physical preps matter if you don't have an eternal spiritual prep. And I see a lot of people missing that mark as well. I'm curious because I'm incredibly stubborn, like obnoxiously stubborn. It would politely be referred to as tenacious. You just don't give up, Bear. It's like, no, I'm stubborn and not always that smart either. So I know what the voice of God sounds like for me, right? When Elijah, he's having his little nap and a cookie time after the false prophets of Baal. There's a storm and there's a whirlwind, and then the still small voice of God in the calm. Yeah, I've never heard his voice like that. It's always been a knife hand and stern. You will do this. I'm like, okay, yes, sir. Fine. I finally give up. And it's always with the connotation of like, I am not going to tell you again. If I have to tell you one more time, it's your ass. Okay. Yes, sir. Understood. I will do it this time. So I'm curious for you, when he speaks to you, when you get that conviction of the Spirit, what does it sound like or feel like to you?
Yeah, I can relate to that. We have our local war band, the like-minded guys. We train together, and we're having some cigars and whiskey a couple years ago, and let's give each other animal names, right, that would represent your character. And so I am the badger for that very reason. Not particularly bright, but I get things done because I won't stop. I just keep going at it and keep going at it. And my wife is quite a bit smarter than I am, and she'll come out and look at a problem I'm dealing with and interject something that would save me hours or cut the job in half. But I can't be bothered with that. I've already put my hand to the plow, and this is the way we're going. So But yeah, it's my Christian walk has been a series of fall off and fall into the ditch on the left side, and the Almighty grabbing me and sitting me up and cleaning me off and squaring my shoulders and getting me on the right path, and then falling off on the right side. And that's the way I go forward, covered in mud and back and forth.
I completely relate to everything you just said. 100%. My wife is 50 IQ points higher than mine, right? So she's not just beautiful, she's also like literally Mensa level. And sometimes she'll just look at me and shake her head and she's like, really? Is this what you're doing? And I'm just in a blind rage at this point. Like the answer is yes, even if it's the wrong way, this is what we're doing. I'm fully committed to this. It's so wrong that I'm going to make it right by sheer force of will. So yeah, I totally get that. And you know, my walk has been, man, it's not even been a walk. It's just been a crawl covered in mud and blood and tears and just all of that. I mean, just grueling, which is for me required because it shows the extent of his grace and mercy. Because I'm the epitome of, hey, if he can redeem me, I don't know what everybody else is so concerned about. Because I literally played for the other team for a decade. You know what I mean? I was a bad person for a decade. And the whole time it was like, hey, dummy, you know you can come home again, right? It's like, I would love to, but I'm really pissed off right now, Dad. Maybe I'll see you after a while. It was like, okay, I'll be here. And he was never not there. And he won. Praise the Most High, he won. So that's awesome. Let's circle back. Preparedness. Food. Are you familiar with the 5 C's of survival? Have you ever heard that phrase before?
I have.
Okay. So like cutting tool, combustion, cordage, container, cover. That's usually like in your pockets, on your line gear, going out into the world. How would you prioritize? Like, let's say you're an average Joe. You're listening to this. You're paycheck to paycheck or every other paycheck to every other paycheck. And you're gonna start making steps in the appropriate direction for the preservation of life. How would you prioritize the acquisition of stuff, and how would you prioritize also the acquisition of skills?
Well, first off, where are you? What is your climate? What time of year is it? You know, what do you have at your availability? You know, as fluid as things are right now, something could kick off any day now. So the first thing that I would do is, do you have family? Do you have friends that have a place out in the country? Can you speak with them? Are they open-minded? Can you set something up? Can you pre-plan a little bit? Even just having a few things, a basic bailout kit, some food stores that you can store on site out there with a plan. Hey, we're going to take the trailer out there. We're going to get an RV. You know, that's kind of where I would start. If you're living in the city and you've got nothing, there's a lot of good resources with the overland community. You already got a vehicle. Most of you guys are probably going to have a pickup. I would take a look at practicing overlanding. It's a good thing. It's an affordable thing to do with your family. It gets you out of the house and it helps you to train and work with your systems. That's what I saw this weekend. We had a lot of guys that are kind of coming to this knowledge and buying stuff and buying gear. And we all came out together in an off-grid dry camp area. And right there, you start seeing all the holes being blown in all of the best laid plans. What sounds good on the internet or what made sense in your shop is wholly different when you're 3 days without power and you really start to see the holes in your system. So I have a plan, you know, look at where you live. How are you going to get away? Have a few things set aside so that you're not caught on the back foot in the event that something happens. Now, after that, once you have that established, you got to look at, you know, what's your environment? If you're living up north and it gets really cold, you're not going to have to worry about food if you freeze to death. How are you going to heat your house? Because exposure is the big one. Mm-hmm. You can live 3 days without water, but if you're upper Minnesota or up in the UP, you know, you're not going to live 24 hours without heat. So you really got to take a look at that sort of thing. You know, how am I going to heat my house? Do I have some propane tanks? Do I have some Mr. Buddy heaters? Could I maybe go on Facebook Marketplace and have a wood stove in reserve and some pipe maybe it's not EPA approved. Maybe you don't even install it, but have it there and have a couple cords of wood, you know, and look at it that way. And once you get that taken care of, how are you going to keep your house from freezing? How are you going to heat? You know, what are you going to eat? Well, that's when you get into freeze dried food. Like you said, we have a harvest right freezer. We freeze dry 24/7, putting that stuff away. And then after you have food and exposure, you got to take a look at water. Do you have a well? There's so many dudes that say, "Oh, I'm good. I have a well." Well, that well may be 400 or 500 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
How much startup power does it take? Some of those are 3-phase, 240 power pumps, and
Yep.
well casings are what, 6-8 inches. You're going to put a bucket down there with a string like Grandpa did. You're not even going to know how to get the well cap off.
You know how good your triceps are going to look drawing water every day from a 500-foot deep well. You're going to be dead by the time you get the third bucket up.
And God help you if you have to water livestock or irrigate.
Oh, 100%. You bring up the EPA and wood stoves. I've got a dear brother and a friend who I would just say represents different interests around the country. And he shot me a text message. He said, "Hey, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods. I got to talk to some people about some things." I'm like, "Okay, cool. What's up?" And he goes, "Yeah, I gotta go up to the Capitol and talk to the EPA." I'm like, "All right, what's up?" EPA in Oklahoma. I mean, come on. And he goes, "Yeah, I gotta go talk to him about asphalt." I'm like, "All right, what's the problem here?" He goes, "Yeah, they're concerned that the asphalt isn't green enough." It's literally made out of dead dinosaurs and rocks. How do you green up asphalt? And so that's the conversation he had. He went and said, "Hey, this is oil and crushed rocks. It's not going to get any greener." And they're like, "Okay, cool." And they left and went back to DC. The EPA, man, governmental overreach on all these things. If we let them, not to get on that sidetracked on that, but if we let them, at some point, everything will be so overregulated that you won't be able to exist anymore. So for me, I tend to push back at those things. Whenever I think a lot of people, what do they call it? Red pilled. A lot of people got red pilled during the COVID lockdowns and all of that. Governmental overreach. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. They're not. What are you doing about it? Oh, well, nothing. Okay, well, that doesn't really help either. It was actually a joy for me going to work every day during COVID. Simply as an act of defiance. It's like, regardless of what anybody thinks we may or may not be allowed to do, I'm biblically commanded to provide for my wife and my children. And I have a mission statement to uphold here for the preservation of life. So we're going to keep doing what we do. And I don't know. I think a lot of times people give too much purview away to whatever governing authority it is. I don't ask for permission. I may on occasion beg for forgiveness kind of guy. You saw this when we were in Helene, right? It's like, who organized all this? A bunch of civilians. Well, where's the government? It's 11 days later. They're still trying to figure out whether they're going to do something or not. And everything we've ever gotten done with Grindstone, we've gotten done in spite of the government, not because of the government. So I don't know. It's just thoughts there.
No, I agree with you. I hate government regulation and overreach, and I've been a rebel my entire life. But one thing we need to say that you're freely entitled to go ahead and to buck that system, and many of us do. But you also have to take on the consequences that come from that.
Mm-hmm.
You want to save $1,000 on a non-EPA stove, you can do that and put it in. But know this: when your house, if it burns down, then you're not going to get an insurance check. So I agree with you 100%. The reason why we have all these overburdensome regulations is because the boomer generation has essentially just accepted it and just given away all these freedoms. And now people are starting to push back on that a little bit. And I agree with it, but we're in it's the growing pain time. So you just understand the risks that you're getting into and take upon the responsibility on your own self.
It's interesting you bring up insurance. I'm sure you're at least vaguely aware of what happened in Michigan on Sunday this is a complex terror attack. It's not just simply a church shooting. And I don't believe the official narrative for a moment, but that's a different conversation. Yesterday total, I quoted 21 separate church security training quotes yesterday. And I'm in no way grifting off of the believers in Christ that were killed, were massacred. But people reach out. It happens every time after an emergency. Somebody or some buddies will reach out and say, we need help. We need training. We need this. We need that. Okay, cool. Maybe the light bulb's starting to go off. And then I've quoted 3 today. So in the last 48 hours, 24 separate training classes for church security. But I've heard from so many people, whether it was elders or pastors, well, we'll have to check with our insurance on that. Well, we don't allow people to carry weapons concealed or otherwise in our church because of the insurance. I don't know if we're allowed to train on property because of the insurance. Okay, I get it. You know, we live in a litigious society. I mean, I have product liability, general liability. I have all the business things for Refuge and all the other things that we do. I'm insuring Caleb House is hysterical. They're like, what do you guys do? Can't talk to you about it. They're like, okay, does it involve aircraft? Yes, occasionally. Does it involve firearms? Mm-hmm. But what do you guys do? Literally cannot talk to you about it. Just give me a quote. But it's amazing to me the level at which everything has grown to require the approval of some actuarial table somewhere to say, oh yeah, well, you can't do that unless you're insured. 100%. Now I understand it with homeowners insurance. You make a good point about the EPA stove, but the body of Christ is subject to whether or not we can get insurance. It starts to get a little gritty at this point, because regardless of what the insurance company might think, I'm carrying a weapon to church 10 out of 10 times, and so is everybody else I go to church with. And it's just been an interesting last 48 hours from that standpoint.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm fully willing to take on the responsibility of going outside of the law and reaping the consequences. I agree 100%. And ultimately, like you said, my obligation to look after, provide for, take care of, feed my family precedes over any laws that would prohibit me from doing that, as the way I look at it. And I adhere to that first. And if they're not in conflict, then we'll take a look at what man says.
We're actually quite similar. I have the same policy. Let me see what Dad said first. And if your rules line up with Dad's rules, then we can have a conversation. If your rules don't line up with Dad's rules, then I'm not interested. And I would love at some point for somebody to take that all the way to the Supreme Court, but I won't hold my breath on that. So weapons, do you recommend people have weapons from a preparedness standpoint?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I guess that would be the fourth pillar. Once you take care of how you're going to deal with your shelter, how you're going to feed your family, how you're going to get water, I mean, that's right up there with it. That's number 4, 100%.
There's a lot of everybody's got an opinion, right? It's super interesting in the prepper space. Talk about preps becoming an idol. Weapons absolutely can become an idol. There's a lot of people that their whole personality is built around the type of weapon that they carry or what caliber they have or whatever it might be, you know? And I'm the exact opposite. I don't care. Can you hit with it? I don't care if you have the best gun ever made. If you can't shoot it, it doesn't matter. And I would much prefer you had the worst gun ever made, but you hit the target 10 out of 10 times. That's my personal preference. But on Sunday, we were out at the range, and I was teaching a fighting pistol class. And I was making the argument about foot-pounds. And I had a brother who was out there. He was shooting one of those like IPSC plates with a swinger in the belly. So you hit center mass, it swings outside, and then it swings back around again. He shot that swinger plate from 10 yards, 7 to 10 yards, 6 times with a 9mm, and it never swung back to center. And so I stopped the class, make all the weapons dry, show clear, walk over and put one finger behind the swinger plate and swung it back around to center. I said, I want everybody to see this. There's 6 hits right here on the swinger plate. I can move it with one finger. And he's shooting a 9mm, whether he's shooting a 9mm, 45, 40, 10 mil, whatever. We have a foot-pounds problem with pistols versus even an AR-15, your standard 16-inch just carbine, it'll swing that plate back and forth all day, every day, because you're 12 to 1,400 foot-pounds, 3 to maybe 500 with a pistol. And it's 80%. 80% of people shot with pistols survive. That's good or bad, depending on who you are and what you're doing. And so while I think, like, I have a Glock on my hip right now, this very moment, I have a Glock 19X on me. However, that's for me to get my way back to the rifle that I shouldn't have set down in the first place. And also because as of right now, we don't really want to be carrying rifles around in public. Is it Florida that just changed their open carry laws?
Yes.
Yeah. I saw a guy on a motorcycle with a Draco on his back. I was like, I don't know how that's going to end. But a lot of people think that weapons are magic wands, right? Like, I've got this pistol, I've got this rifle, I've got this shotgun. Nobody will be able to mess with me. It doesn't matter without training. If you haven't adequately trained to be able to use the weapons platform, switches and timers. You got one switch. It's right here, terminal T. That turns people off. Everything else is a timer, because the body, the vascular system in the body is a hydraulic system, and we have to leak enough hydraulic fluid out in order for the machine to stop. And that, depending on the mechanism of injury, can take 2 to 4 minutes in some cases. And so it's not like Hollywood. You don't just shoot somebody center mass and they go flying across the room and fall down on their back and they're done for. If you ever watch some of these law enforcement officer-involved shootings on these body cams, people stay in the fight for a long time. So if you're new to preparedness and you get a weapon, you should then train with it, because we don't have belt-fed machine guns. We don't have 50 cals. We don't have explosives. We don't have claymores and hand grenades. We have accuracy. And if we can't bring accuracy to the table, it doesn't matter. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I never thought that this would be the case, but my EDC now, when I leave the house, it includes a long gun.
Mm-hmm.
Am I carrying out open carrying it, or doing that overtly? No, of course not. But what I've done is, growing up hunting and realizing, my grandfather was not a big collector of guns. There were some guys that had a new gun every year and the latest, greatest gizmo and new optics. Granddad shot a 7mm Remington mag with a Redfield 4X scope, and he was the most deadly marksman I've ever seen. I seen him take animals in excess of 800 yards with a 4X scope with that rifle. That's all that he carried since the 60s. And he was absolutely deadly with that. And I learned a lot from that. And I got, it's easy. The sexiest part of prepping for guys is the firearms and the optics. And the more you watch on YouTube, the more you are unsatisfied with what you have. What I tell the guys is, look at you're going to need to have a rifle in your EDC. Let's get something that there's so many options now that you can carry these covertly. There's backpacks now you can put them in. You can throw a loft tactical folding stock on there. You can go with a pistol or piston variant, so you don't have to deal with the buffer tube. Whatever that is, think long and hard of it. What kind of a system can you work in? If you were going to go in and stay in a hotel room, how can you get that in there with you? If you're going to have it in your truck, how can you keep it so it's not open that someone's going to break a window and grab it? You have to look at these systems of what can you live with and what can you become deadly with, and just settle in on one and stop trying to have the latest, greatest and get proficient with that. Like, I have coyotes here all the time, and I've got 50 different ARs I could grab at any time. Mm-hmm. Every time when I need something, when I need to make it count, I grab the one, I carry a Mark 18 with an ACOG on it, and that's the one. If I could only have one, that's what I would take. Is it the best? Is it ideal? No, it's not the best. It's not going to be great at 600 yards, but it's the one that I'm familiar with. I know it forwards and backwards. I trust it implicitly. I've got thousands and thousands of rounds through it. Get something reliable, the best you can afford, something that you can live with, and just be satisfied with that and be deadly with it.
That's a great word. It's a great word. There's so many people from a preparedness standpoint, they've got $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 worth of firearms and no food, no water, no shelter, no commo, no intel, no med, no nothing. And if you get around people who have been into preparedness for a while, you talked earlier on the concept of what do you bring to the table? Like, you're not the animal husbandry guy. You can do carpentry. You can process firewood. I believe that of you, right? I've seen that. You do heavy equipment. You can pull security. I hear from a lot of people, they're like, well, I'm going to be on the security team. Homie, we're all on the security team because the carrying capacity of the land versus the number of people we have to work it in any extended, protracted situation, people have to rotate in and out of the security team. And so when somebody comes to me and they're like, I've got this $18,000 rifle and I've got, $11,000 worth of nods and blah, which I'm good with, right? Me too. Cool. Also today, you're peeling potatoes. And they're like, no, I'm on the security team. No, we're all on the security team. Grandma can easily hit targets at 300 yards, right? My teenage children have their own rifles. Now, they're mine, I keep on, but they're their rifles, right? That they can shoot easily to 500 yards, not a problem. Everybody here can pull security. So we've commoditized security. So when we think about things that you can bring to the table, if security is all you got, if you're a one-trick pony on security, there's only certain groups that's going to fly in. For us, the ethos that we have as a people here, everybody has a pistol and a rifle, and everybody can shoot them. It's just part of who we are. So I agree with you. Be able to shoot the dang thing. And there are two rifles that I grab regularly. One's a 16-inch 5.56 with a 1-to-8 LPVO on it. The other's a 16-inch 5.56 with a PEC 15. It's literally right there with a PEC 15 and dot sight on it and an illuminator. And that's my night gun for running under knots. And that's coyotes, hogs, bobcats. I've got 2 bobcats on the Homesteading right now that need to go. Shh, don't tell anyone. And that's it, right? It just, one's white light, one's no light. That's it. Of all the freaking weapons platforms I have, those are the ones that each one of them has more than 7,000 rounds through them from just training and everyday use. So, yeah, don't idolize your weapons. Learn to shoot them.
Yeah, what I see with, I have seen all that. I've done a lot of training with Clinton Smith over down at Thunder Ranch, and he's very much of the mindset of being a minimalist. Light, sling, reliable weapon. And I have done high angle rifle training, combat pistol, urban rifle, all that. And the dudes show up with $20,000-$30,000 rifles, and all that shit starts falling off of them. It's funny. He even predicts it. It's like a prophet. He's looking at all the guns. He's like, well, that's ain't gonna work, and that ain't gonna work. And pretty soon he was right. After 24 hours, when you're under stress and he's really putting you through the business, all that stuff, all that fancy stuff, man, that stuff starts going away. And you got a little pile of gear over on the side, and you just get down to what works. And that's what you learn from working with your stuff, man. That's what we learned this last weekend, is what works and what doesn't work. And you don't need half of the stuff you think you need to carry.
We just ran a wilderness medicine class with Refuge. I don't know, a couple, 3 weeks ago. It all melds together at this point. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it was Labor Day weekend. So maybe 4 weeks ago. It was a blast. Anyway, we had 24, 26 students out there, 6 cadre, spent 3 days teaching wilderness medicine. And I gave everybody a loadout, and you are not allowed to fail the layout, right? And so before we stepped off, everybody lays the tarp on the ground. Let me see your socks. Pull them out. Show them to me. Okay. Put them up. Pack it. And so everybody made it through the layout. And this was based upon a 3-day operational loadout. We hike in, we go up a ridge. We had a little camp spot picked out. Everybody make camp. If you don't, and it was cool because we had people from career military to people who had never been camping before, let alone done wilderness medicine. And so there was a lot of, we broke them into 6 teams. There's a lot of interoperability there. If you don't know how to make a poncho hooch, let somebody know, we'll show you. If you don't know how to sleep on the ground, let somebody know, we'll show you. If you don't know how to poop in the woods, let somebody know, we'll show you. We'll talk you through all that. But what very quickly happened, and it was one of the TLOs, one of the terminal learning objectives, we've got students carrying, and it was not required on the packing list, but it was encouraged, bring a firearm with you, a long gun. Now they had chamber flags, they had empty magazines, but just for 3 days, to carry around a rifle for 3 days. Very quickly, by noon on day one, there was a small loadout that people were stuffing into chest rigs of the stuff they actually needed, and everything else was in the rucksack leaned against a tree over there, and nobody thought about it for the next 2.5 days, right? And that was the point, because depending on the student, they're carrying somewhere between 50 and 80 pounds of gear, and we used 15 pounds of it, maybe, but you don't know that until you do it. And all that good idea fairy stuff, you're like, I thought I would need, 4 whoobies and 3 tarps and 900 foot of paracord and 2 different mosquito nets. No, man, you actually barely need any of that. But people learn experientially. And I like to bring people to a pain point, and then we can have a conversation and go, why do you have that? Oh, I thought it'd be a good idea. No, maybe. But you don't, going back to training, you don't know unless you do it. My phone's ringing over there. Somebody's calling the store at Refuge Medical. Super interesting. You can actually do that because we're people, not robots. Thoughts, my brother?
Yeah, I learned that elk hunting. I started walking with my granddad when I was 12, carrying a rifle, and we hunted. We really hunted. We would go down in the bottom of Hell's Canyon. We'd go down there and lay underneath of a tarp the night before, so we could follow the herd and put them to bed. And so you had to go. You're going to be out all day long carrying a wood stock rifle with a 22-inch barrel. I used to carry a 300 Weatherby Magnum. Mm-hmm. and an old military pack board and all of your stuff. Like, you learn really real quick what you can handle and what you can't handle. And everyone who hasn't had these experiences, or maybe haven't been in the military or rucked, don't have any understand what's realistic. I see them, the guys that I take out, I see them take probably 4x of what they actually need.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the guys who, we're losing. It's my perception that we are losing. You talked about your grandfather and going hunting with him and what all that entailed. Me too. And like, my dad was a very rugged individual, and everybody in that generation, they just got by without a whole hell of a lot. And I feel like we're losing some of that as well, certainly as men. I've never been a woman, and I'm never going to be one, so I don't know. But it's like that older generation of men that were strong and calloused and stoic and rough and knew how to get by on a little bit of string and bubble gum. Now everything's got to be Gucci. Everything's got to be high speed, low drag, and the expense of something has become a status symbol, where it used to be stewardship was the status symbol. Like you brought up, your neighbor's been in the cattle business for 5 generations. That's not easy to do. That takes a lot of stewardship. And if they had bought every cool new toy that had ever come out at every opportunity, it probably wouldn't be in the business for 5 generations.
Yes.
So
yeah, no, that's true. I have this conversation with my neighbor across the street. He's got 250 head of dairy cows, 4th or 5th generation dairy farmer. And not only do these guys and their family run this whole thing and take care of these cows and keep them warm in the wintertime, but they also raise and grow all of the food for the cows as well. So they're actually doing 2 jobs. Mm-hmm. And that's, we talk about this, he laughs at me. He's like, oh, it must be nice to have so much time where you can do everything just right and all your repairs perfect. They're doing baling wire, they're making do, whatever it takes. And it's just always the way that it is. But it's easy to romanticize back in the day and how Granddad did things and leather and wool and such. But I'll tell you the truth, that Granddad had access to some of the state-of-the-art stuff that we have today, they would have definitely embraced it. I mean, if you think everything's good in the old days, just go pack a hindquarter of elk out on a World War II plywood packboard with 1-inch webbing straps and no waist belt, and tell me how the things of the old days are better than the new. So I guess I agree with you. Don't get caught up in, I got to have the Gucci and this is a status symbol, and that's what the majority of GunTube is on YouTube. I find it unwatchable because of that reason. These guys started off with the best of intentions, but if that's what you do, and you have to make content day in and day out, you have to stay relevant by always something new, bringing something new to the table. So you can easily watch that and think, oh, that's the way we do it. No, it's not the way you do it. Buy quality the first time, get training, know what you're getting into, make a smart choice, and then just be content with it. Comparison is a thief of joy.
So I agree with you on that. And I guess what I'm saying, what I miss the most about that older generation were hard men that had hands the size of catcher's mitts. That, I remember there's a guy, it was one of my dad's best friends. It's an old Polish guy who would pick up 90-pound Canadian, we called them Canadians. They're 90-pound square bales, hay bales, with one hand and just casually throw them onto the hay bale trailer when we were out baling hay. And I remember being a young man looking at that, like that was my job, 1,800 bales a day. So 1,800 reps at 90 pounds, picking them up, throwing them on the wagon. The wagon goes in the barn, unloading them onto the stacker conveyor, then getting up in the loft. And so 3 times, I've touched this thing 3 times, times 1,800, right? That's a lot of hay. We put up a lot of freaking hay. And this dude would just pick him up. His name was Bruce Witkovich, giant Polak guy, did line construction. And he would just palm a 90-pound hay bale and just chuck it up on the trailer. And I'm sure those men are still out there somewhere. I just haven't seen them in a while. And I miss that for masculinity and Americana of, men who can do that. My dad had another buddy. It was actually Bruce's brother, who would pick up manhole covers, a 300-pound steel manhole cover. He'd stick his finger in the hole and lift it up and slide it off and pull it out of the way. I've watched him do it on several occasions. Where's that? Where has that gone?
It hasn't gone anywhere. What did it? I can share a story. I think maybe I told you. We were elk hunting. It was about 20 below opening morning, and we're all gathered around the fire, freezing to death. And my granddad's best friend was one of these guys you talked about. He stood there and talked to us. I'll never forget it. He was a logger. He had his shirt cut off, flannels unbuttoned. It was 20 below. And he's holding on bare hands with 2 sets of tire chains, the big ones, the heavy ones like the log trucks use. And he stood there and talked to us for the better part of a half hour with an open shirt and no gloves, holding those metal chains 20 below, and watching that and seeing that, and him being a mentor of the group and the young boys watching that. Do you think any one of those kids were going to complain about being cold after that? You weren't going to say nothing. We were there bitching about it. Oh, how cold we are, and how we have to suffer to go and hunt. And here Merle standing out there, open. It's like that put the end to that. So that mentorship, seeing what masculinity is and having it modeled, that's how you learn it. And that's what's missing. I don't think that the kids don't have the ability to do it. I know they have the ability to do it. They just have never been taught how.
I think there's at least a subset of the population is yearning to get that instruction on what that looks like. Even little things are indicators to me. I've got an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old, and most people my age are carrying around these existential crisis rectangles, with cameras on the back of them and the whole nine. And I noticed about a year ago, my oldest daughter, she what do they call it? Cosmetology, right? She's a hairstylist. I'm like, hey, if you can earn good money and it makes you happy, explain to me how this furthers the kingdom of God. And she's like, I'm helping people that have insecurities about their appearance feel better about themselves. I was like, okay. And she goes, and they have a lot of conversations with me, and it gives me an opportunity to witness. I'm like, okay, cool. We can make that work. Well, I noticed about a year ago, she had a digital camera. I was like, I've seen one of these before. And she's taking pictures with this little digital camera. I'm like, why are you using that instead of your phone? She's like, I don't know. It's just, there's something about the phone. I like this. It's more like a camera. And then I keyed in on that. I've actually seen that a lot with that age bracket, where there seems to be some pulling back from the existential crisis rectangle and trying to go maybe course correct just a little bit. My son is 17. He's got himself an F-350 flatbed diesel, not new. I mean, this thing, was kind of destined for the junkyard. He took it, tore it all apart, rebuilt it. He's done all the work on it. He's like, Dad, I think I need to get some toolboxes to put on there so I can carry my tools around. I'm like, yes, you do. That's awesome. And he's got calluses on his hands. He feeds the animals. He works 2 different jobs, goes to 2 different schools at 17 years old. Is trying to figure out how to build his, like, he's finalizing design on his house right now that he's going to build with his own 2 hands next door to mine, which is beautiful. And so maybe there's some course correction there in that generation. But with my generation, a lot of these people I see, unfortunately, are like NPCs. Like, the worst thing I can do for morale is like go to Walmart and just look around. And I'm like, no way, man. Thoughts, good sir.
No, I agree. But I also understand, one thing that was kind of hard for me was I never went to college. I'm not an intellectual person. I'm a shop guy. I can pick up heavy things and build things. Having a son, I just assumed that we would have the same interest, that he would enjoy being in the shop and working on stuff as much as I do, but that was not the case. He was more intellectual, he was more cerebral, more like his mother. And I butted heads with him a long time on that and got really frustrated. And it really ruined our relationship for many years because I couldn't meet him where he was at. I just was trying to force him into something that he wasn't. So I understand and I appreciate that guys need to be rugged and have calluses on their hands and have a skill set. But I also understand that not everyone is me. And that God has his people in a lot of different places. And really, the majority of souls that need to hear the gospel are not in the country areas. Most of them are already in that choir. So there is a place for guys that can go out. One thing that really opened my mind on this is we got our kids involved with speech and debate, and they were competing, and we're going to these national things. And I saw kids that were from 12 to 18 that were doing incredible work in a field that I had nothing to do. Most of these kids are going to be getting into government, politics, legislation, but they come from hardcore, solid Christian families. And their intent is to raise these kids to get them into the system to make change, whether that be making legislation that's favorable to homeschoolers and such. So I get what you're saying. I like that too. If it were up to me, we would all live in the country and shoot guns and have 4-wheel drives. But I also understand that everyone has a different path and God has his people everywhere. So it's hard to say, I guess.
So I agree with what you're saying. And by the way, it is not a requirement for you to agree with everything that I say, just so we're allowed to disagree on things. In fact, I think that's where the good stuff is. If I need a brain surgeon, I want a damn good one, right? And hopefully he has 0 calluses on his hands or whatever else it might be. I guess, so my data set, I live in the country. I see a lot of soft country boys that are shop guys, right? That are going to VOTEC, that are in welding class or HVAC or electrical, and they spend more on product for their hair than my daughter does, and she's a cosmetologist. I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh yeah, girls like it. I'm like, I think you like it more than the girls like it. You know what girls like? They like dirty jeans and calluses and muscles, okay? And money and a pickup truck. That's what girls like. So yeah, looking at that data set, right? I have plenty of friends that I affectionately call my nerd squad, and from all different backgrounds. In fact, some of the stuff that we're working on right now, I got a solicitation hanging on my wall right here from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Association. I need my nerd squad because I don't know nothing about that stuff. That is not my wheelhouse at all. In fact, I didn't realize why we were invited to this solicitation until I hopped on the Zoom call with 184, 186 people on the call. And I realized pretty quick, there's 5 people on this call that have actually seen blood before. And 3 of them are on the DARPA side and 2 of them are on the contractor side. And those 2 are me and our lead instructor, Mike. Everybody else here is AI, robotics, additive manufacturing, all that, which is great. But nobody here that is going to be performing any of this scope of work or even proposing the scope of work has actually seen blood before. So I don't know. I like what I like. I have a very limited data set and a limited set of experiences. I just, whatever role you're fulfilling on behalf of the kingdom, and I agree, the Father does have his people everywhere. There's an element to masculinity, the ability to assert yourself and your beliefs and your convictions and not be infringed upon mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, infringed upon. I'm hoping that tide is turning from people who will just take it or they'll go along to get along to people who have realized what fruit that bears when we go along to get along. If you give the enemy an inch, they often take a mile. And I am concerned, based upon all the indicators, that while I don't want to use my preps at all, I may need to. And I've seen many a conflict since I've begun preparing. I just don't like the way things are stacking up currently. And I don't like all the chatter that I'm hearing. And my concern there is it's going to require, if we have to break glass in case of emergency, it's going to require a substance of the American man that may be in short supply, if that makes sense.
It's already happening, and I can see the Almighty's hand in this. It all started at COVID. Things got so specialized and so comfortable where you could have like little to no skill set. You could be able to write code or be good at numbers and provide for your family and never miss a beat. But that day is ending. It's going to be necessity now where you have to pick up things. I know families, TJ, that are going to have to deliver their own kids because they don't have health insurance. And they would have never done that in the past, but the necessity will cause it. If you can't I've got my neighbor who's struggling right now, who is lost his job because AI has essentially made what he does no longer of value. And he's going to have to make a decision. Either he's going to fail in life and lose everything, or he's going to adapt and he's going to become a multifaceted man. And that's the big difference between what granddad's generation and my dad was. Man, growing up, I never worried about having a job. He never worried about having a job. I'll do a truck driver if I have to, or I'm a roofer, or I'll do this or do that, whatever I have to do. And that's something that the greatest gift that he gave me was figure it out. It doesn't matter you can't do something, you just have to figure it out. And that's the thing that really is hamstringing a lot of these guys. If they lose what they think they know how to do, it's not in their understanding or in their paradigm to think, oh, wait a minute, I could go and do something 180 degrees different. And that's what all of this pressure and this failing economy is forcing guys into this boat. So I think it's a positive thing.
One of the benefits of having a wide and varied set of experiences, I use the analogy square, plumb, and level, right? You're a carpenter, square, plumb, and level. So straight up and down, right? Got plumb, square, 90-degree corners, level, perfectly flat, 0 degrees out of flat. That applies to so many different things. It doesn't matter if we're pouring concrete, or if we're timber framing, if we're framing a house, if we're building a bridge, if I'm setting power poles or power structures or putting up wind turbines, or if I'm welding up racks for solar panels, or it doesn't matter. It's just universal truths, square, plumb, and level to the best of our ability. That's what we need to shoot for. How we get there, the tools that we use, the materials that we use, how we implement square, plumb, and level doesn't matter. It's all situational. But if you understand the foundational concepts, you can apply them across hundreds of different potential career paths. And like I was cutting timber as a young man in upstate New York, and it was a 40-acre parcel, and 18 of it was on the other side of this stream. It wasn't a creek; it was a stream. And they're like, "Well, how are you going to get over there? Like, you see these giant white pines?" They're like, "Uh-huh." I said, "I'm going to fell them across like so. I'm going to use a track hoe and pick up one end. I'm going to take the saw. I'm going to dig in, right? So I'm going to butt them on either side of the creek bed, lay it across. I'm going to take the saw, I'm going to cut it flat across the top. And I'm going to take these other big white pines here, which at the time were like $180 MBF, 1,000 board foot, and because I want to get over there where I can see the red oak and I can see the black cherry, I can see the hard maple. That's what we were cutting was hardwoods. I want to get over there where the money trees are at. And I'm going to take some more of these pines. I'm going to cut them into 16-foot sections, and we're going to just slab them out with the saws. I'm going to take railroad spikes, pound them in. Boom, we got a bridge. I can walk a D6 high track across this. These are like 30, 32-inch diameter white pines. You can do that? Oh, yeah, I'll have it done by lunchtime because I want to get over there where the money trees are because I have no money and girls like dirty jeans and muscles and pickup trucks. So I'm going over there. But it's the same. They're all universal concepts that I have applied regardless of what I was doing to earn an income for my family. Like you said with Grandpa, it doesn't matter what I do, whether I'm roofing or driving a truck or framing a house. And so some people, again, if it's my attorney, my CPA, or my surgeon, I want them to have as many reps and sets in that thing as possible. I want the best. But there's no shame in being somebody that's had a wide and varied experience because they will just make things happen, and they'll make things in order to make things happen. And that is such a gift of a capability that as we flex more and more towards a digital world and we lose the physical material world, this earth, which the Father made and said, this is good. Okay. Well, it's a sinful fallen world. Yeah, we did that. That's people's fault, right? People got here and we complicated things, to say the least. But as we flex off of not the idolatry of this physical world, but the resources that it represents to this digital world, the skills in order to literally make something and to make something happen here in the physical plane, those skills have been diminished in their value. And I don't necessarily agree with that universally. Again, I want specialists where we need specialists, but I also want guys that can, swap an alternator and do an oil change and push in a road and fell a tree and, weld the tractor back together and, fix the well pump and frame a house and all as one.
Yeah, it's that analogy of straight and plumb. That's so true. I was thinking when you said that there are no straight lines in nature, and we know that the nature testifies of God's creative nature. But we've been made in His image, and He's given us things to do, and everything that we've been given to do. We've been made in the image of God with God power. We can create, just like He did. We can create little people in our own image. It's interesting that our work that has been given has been to make lines that are straight. everything that we make, God's hand is crooked and wild and chaotic, and the things that we find joy in building, the straighter, the plumber, the better, the tighter the joint, the tighter the tolerance, the more satisfied we are. It's just kind of an interesting distinction between us and the Father.
That's a great observation. Yeah, that's really good. I wonder, so AVT, the Angry Viking therapist, Dr. Trevor Wilkins, is in the chat. He's one of my best friends. AVT, I need a white paper on the psychological effects of straight lines on human beings. You have 48 hours. I want it on my desk. Go. I've never considered that before. That's awesome. Well, brother, let's circle around. Let's put a bow on this. It's been an excellent conversation. I appreciate you very much. I really enjoyed getting to know you out on that grindstone deployment at Hurricane Helene. It was a gift of you giving your time to come out and help people that you never met before. And that is very much so what Grindstone is about. That's just what we do. And I've watched you from afar for a long time. I've been a passive participant in your YouTube career, if you will. I'm a member on your channel. I would encourage other people to be a member on your channel as well. A lot of people complaining, all the good stuff's behind a paywall. Yeah, a workman is worth their hire, 100%. All my best stuff's behind a paywall too, because it's just like going to the bar on Friday night and there's a band playing, right? Okay, there's a cover charge because the cover charge helps keep the riffraff out. But all that being said, I think you've contributed a tremendous value to the preparedness community, maybe more than you will ever know. And I commend you for being as vocal as you have been in your faith and your journey and what that looks like. Do you have any parting thoughts for the audience, specifically regarding maybe being new to all of this?
Yeah, I guess what I would part with is that don't try to do too much or to think you're behind if your preparations or you're not living where you're at or you don't have the stuff that you think that you need. God's calling people every day. He's waking people up to the reality. COVID was a big shakening, and we're all on different rungs of that ladder trying to get to the kingdom. And remember, the scripture says that he'll never allow you to be tempted more than you're able to resist. And I also believe he'll never expect of you to do something that you're not able to do. If you're an 80-year-old woman and you're getting the message that you want to prepare or have some food or water, you do what you can. You do what you can. God knows you. He knows what you're capable of. He knows what you can handle mentally. He knows what you can handle physically. He's not going to ask you to work outside of that. So don't be stressful about it. Move forward. Consistency is the thing. Do what you can where you're at with what you have. And it's his job to take care of you. It is his job to provide for you the things that you need. So if this all kicks off tomorrow and the EMP takes out the power grid and you've got 1 week worth of food, well, he provided for his people in the past. He will provide for them in the future. So go forward, enjoy your life. Enjoy your wife, enjoy your family, enjoy your food, and don't be black-pilled about everything and just be dooming and glooming all the time. Get together with your neighbors, enjoy your kids, enjoy your food, have a drink once in a while, have a cigar, but stay focused on what the purpose is. Get on board with your wife if you can. A married couple together can do the work of 10 men. I don't know what it is, but there's some sort of synergy when you and your wife are pulling together in harness and you are focused on that goal. It just seems that God brings things into your life, into your sphere, that just makes it happen supernaturally. Just like when we were in Tennessee, every time we would wake up and look, there would be a need for it. And all of a sudden the truck would show up with generators. My friend Brian was there, and he's an agnostic. He was unable to not see it. He was forced to face the fact that there was divine intervention taking place. There was something different about this organization, and that had a powerful impact on him. So do what you can. Don't be stressed out about it. Move forward, cover the fundamentals, be logical about it, cooperate with the Holy Spirit in making decisions daily, and enjoy your life. And before you know it, you'll be in good shape.
Great words. Great words. I enjoyed getting to know Brian. Good guy. And I agree, when a husband and wife are working in unity, excellent things happen. Amazing things happen. The two are one flesh. You're supposed to be unified in your efforts. My wife is a huge driving factor behind the scenes here at Refuge Medical. So much of what we have accomplished is because of the efforts of my wife, who doesn't really love getting on camera, doesn't really love talking, but man, she just makes stuff happen. And it's a blessing because she's helping us to steward, myriad lives, right? Myriad lives have been saved, 158, 159 that we know of, and tens of thousands of orders, and everybody that's underneath the umbrella of our organizations, just because my wife cares and is bought in and wants to help see my vision come to fruition for a kingdom impact for the preservation of life. That's priceless. And literally, when I get off this call with you, I'm doing two things. I'm peeing and I'm going on a date night with my wife because it's that important. Ecclesiastes 12 comes to mind. Let us hear the conclusion of the entire matter. Fear Elohim, fear God, and guard his commands, for this applies to all mankind. For Elohim shall bring every work into right ruling, including all that is hidden, whether good or whether evil. And if you've ever read Ecclesiastes, it just goes on and on and on about the futility of our efforts, right? I have this little sign that hangs up in my home office. It's just a piece of printer paper, and it says, Do what you can with what you have. Nothing more is required. And that's dovetails well into what you said. It is the Father's job for provision, protection, and blessing, and he does not forsake his people. If you're not one of his people, I would encourage you to become one ASAP, because all your preps are not going to matter when you spend eternity separated from the source of life. Matter cannot be created or destroyed, say the scientists. They haven't read Revelation 19. I'll just leave that at that. If you want to come participate in a grindstone mission with us, go to grindstoneministries.com, and there's a volunteer button right there. We do vet our volunteers. That's for everybody's safety, yours included. What we do with Grindstone is very different than a lot of other disaster relief organizations. We get stuff done, and we get stuff done because we're in unity with the Most High, and we're operating in unity with that spirit that Cody was talking about. And to Cody's point earlier, it's impossible to not see the hand of the Father at work when you literally you're out of generators. We're out, and this is not a generator because I want the coffee pot to work tomorrow morning. This is a generator because Grandpa's on a CPAP machine or an oxygen concentrator, and he's going to die without it. And we've got a woman that's frantic because the last generator just left the yard. And it's like, I'm so sorry. We're out. We're out. Can I pray with you? Yes, please. Father, this is your daughter. She needs a generator now, and we don't have one, but I know you do. Could you please provide a generator for her, for Grandpa, who's going to die without one? We love you. We thank you. In Yeshua's name, in Messiah's name. Amen. You get done praying, and you open your eyes, and this little Toyota Tacoma with Florida plates comes sliding sideways into the yard. Hey, I got here as quick as I could. It's taken me 3 days to get here. Traffic, storms, I got a flat tire. I got a generator. Where should I put it? In the back of her car. Thank you very much. Times 10,000, right? And so it's an honor and a blessing to be able to participate in that. So if that's something you want to support, you can go to grindstoneministries.com. We're 100% privately funded. If that's something you want to participate in, go to grindstoneministries.com, contact us, and we'll be in touch. Cody, thank you so much for your time. You're a wonderful brother. I appreciate you making the time for us, and maybe we'll get to do it again someday.
I'll look forward to that. Thank you for the opportunity. It was great to talk with you again.
You too, bro. You be safe. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye, everyone.